It's August 3rd. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Collaboraction Radio. We're here at the intersection of art, activism, and social change. That was the sounds of DJ Lady D, and this, once again, is Collaboraction Radio. It's a very special day today, and we're actually pre-taping this show with two amazing Chicagoans, and we're going to get into that in a minute. But first, thank you for joining us here on WCPT 820 AM, Chicago's Progressive Talk Radio. You can listen to it live like you're doing right now. Hello again. Or you can get us on the podcast, wherever you get your digital stuff, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, SoundCloud. I am Anthony Mosley, and I'm the artistic director of Collaboraction. We're a 28-year-old nonprofit, and our mission is to build knowledge, empathy, dialogue, and action around our most critical social issues. And we call that process KEDA. K-E-D-A, knowledge, empathy, dialogue, and action. And today's guests have been really doing that with this really special project, La Habana, Madrid. And we're going to, like I said, we have the writer, narrator, high priestess of the proceedings, Sandra Delgado, here with us, and the esteemed director, Cheryl and Bruce, in the studio. Collaboration Radio is sponsored by the Joseph and Bessie Feinberg Foundation. And today's episode of Collaboration Radio is sponsored by AV Chicago, Chicago's leading provider of AV production and event management services, as well as Elevoke, a purpose-driven destination and event management company that seeks to become a trusted ally to your business as they delight your audience and generate impactful outcomes. After the show today, if you feel impassioned and you want to join the conversation, please do. Go to collaboraction.org or email radio@collaboraction.org, where you can learn about sponsoring the show, placing an ad, submitting a PSA, or just doing a deep dive into the work of Collaboration and our work here in Chicago. A few Collaboration updates before we begin. We are now in the midst of our performances over at Kidsapalooza. That's right, Lollapalooza has a special place for families, and Collaboration is highly involved. Actually, I am the MC of the kids stage. We do have our new House of Belonging we are building in the Kimball Art Center. It's going to be a space where we can all gather to experience great art and unpack the work and how it helps us grow towards one another. And this show today, we will be featuring the upcoming La Habana, Madrid performance by Collaboration and Teatro Vista Productions on August 23rd at the Pritzker Pavilion of Millennium Park as part of the 20th anniversary celebration. That show is at 6:30. We start things off with DJ Julio Bishop at 5:30, playing a very danceable salsa set. And this is a free show for the whole family and all your neighbors, the whole block. Bring everybody, because you don't want to miss this legendary Chicago production at this iconic venue. So let us begin by pulling up the bios for our guests today. Hello, ladies, and welcome to the show.
Hello.
Hello.
Thank you for having us.
This is very exciting. This is one of the, so full disclosure, if you didn't know, she has hosted a few shows before. Sandra and I are wedded. We have been wedded for
21 years.
21 years. Our marriage can drink. And Cheryl and Bruce is also one of my favorite people. So actually, it was just a few weeks ago that I started crying on the phone with her about how much she and this project has touched our family. And so this is one of those podcasts, radio shows that I think personally I'll dial back up in 10, 15 years.
Aww.
So it's just very special to be with you amazing people here today. Sandra Delgado is a Colombian Chicagoan who creates joyful spaces of connection for all. She is best known for her smash hit, La Habana Madrid, a musical celebration of the city's Latino community set in a long-gone Caribbean nightclub that drew throngs of newly arrived Latinos to the city's north side in the 1960s. A respected veteran of the stage, Delgado's acting highlights include work at her artistic homes, Collaboration and Teatro Vista, as well as at Steppenwolf, the Goodman Theater, the Public Theater in New York, and many, many more. Her new self-produced theatrical concert series, The Sandra Delgado Experience, debuted in 2023 at the Public Theater's Joe's Pub in New York and played twice at Chicago's Epiphany Arts Center. Her audio play, If You Belong to Me as I Belong to You, is currently streaming on Audible as part of a collaboration with the Oscar-nominated film Women Talking. Her awards include the inaugural Platform Award from the Walder Foundation, a United States Artist Fellowship, NALAC Grant, Illinois Arts Council Fellowship in Literature, 3 Arts Award, Joyce Award, TCG Resident Actor Fellowship, and the 2017 Latina Professional of the Year Award from the Chicago Latino Network. She also serves her city as a board member of the Chicago Public Library, and she is the proud mother to Stella Grace and Coda Kimball, a furry little dog. Welcome to the show, Sandra.
Thank you so much.
Cheryl Lynn Bruce is a Chicago-based actor and director who has performed on numerous regional stages, as well as in Europe and Mexico. She originated the role of Elizabeth Sandry for Steppenwolf's Tony Award winner, The Grapes of Wrath, which she also did at the Court Theatre, National Theatre in UK, and La Jolla Playhouse. And Cheryl Bruce helped develop and direct Sandra Delgado's La Habana Madrid, which premiered at Steppenwolf Theatre 1700 and subsequent productions at the Goodman Theatre, the Miracle Center, Navy Pier Lake Stage, the Den Theatre, and of course last summer at South Coast Repertory, where it was staged outdoors in the San Juan Capistrano Mission, which was just incredible. Most recently, she performed in Antigone at Court Theatre and the House of the Negro Insane with Contemporary American Theater Festival and the National Black Theater Festival. Last year, she helped develop and directed Yamanja, featuring Angelique Kidjo. And her directing credits include Pipeline at Victory Gardens, Spunk, and From the Mississippi Delta with Congo Square Theater, and the streamed readings of The Wedding Band and The Agitators. Cheryl Lynn Bruce, welcome to Collaboration Radio.
Thank you, Anthony. I do feel welcome.
Good. You know, hearing your bio out loud is it can be both tedious and really kind of awesome to take a moment and look back on all the things. We all started our careers just with nothing on our resume but hope and dreams, and we get to a point where we've done a lot. And as we are getting ready to go into the first rehearsal of La Habana Madrid on August 10th, we are at the precipice of another big thing on a resume that we will share with the city of Chicago at Millennium Park. But let's go back to the beginning. Sandra, could you maybe share a little bit about how this project started?
Yeah. So, hi, everyone. So I had been working on a triptych, which is like a series of 3 plays inspired by the women in my life, called Para Mis Madres, for my mothers. And Cheryl and I had actually collaborated on the second in that series, Para Graciela, a solo show with some movement and music inspired by my maternal grandmother. And the third part of the series was going to be about my mother, called Para Maria. Now, my parents got married in a very unusual way, which I will only tell you about if you come to Millennium Park on Friday, August 23rd, so you can find out what I'm talking about. But I thought I was going to write a play about my parents And in interviewing my father, as I started to get ready to write, he mentioned this nightclub, La Habana Madrid. And it was so interesting to me because I grew up in the Lakeview neighborhood, and this club was on the corner of Belmont and Sheffield. And in my memory, walking up and down that street hundreds and hundreds of times in my childhood and adulthood, it to me had never been a Latino neighborhood. It just hadn't been. In my memory, it was a gay neighborhood. It was a punk neighborhood. There were also a couple of, to me at the time, seemingly random Japanese establishments. And there's a reason for that, too. I'm really into Chicago history. And so when my father told me about La Habana Madrid and this nightclub that they used to go to when they first came from Colombia in the mid-'60s, I was like, oh my gosh, this is the play. It would be so cool to have a play that takes place in a club. So you're not walking into a theater, you're walking into the club, and there's going to be a live band. And I've always wanted to sing with a salsa band, so I can do that too. And wouldn't that be fun? And as I started researching La Habana Madrid, now if you Google it, you'll find tons of stuff about the show, Havana, Madrid. But back then there was nothing. And I was like, this is so strange, that you can't find anything about the club. And when I went to Harold Washington Library to do some research, I found this book that was named something like Chicago Music in the 1960s. And I thought, okay, here I'll find a few names. I'll find somewhere to start, and I can start asking people. And in this book of 200 some odd pages, there was not one Latine name. And that's when, for me, the project took a different turn, where it became something more than, wouldn't it be cool to do a play in a club, to like, oh, no, we are excavating and shining a light on this history and this generation of people who are this huge part of Chicago and Chicago history. And the first person I thought of, the first person I called after telling Anthony about the show was like, Cheryl, Lynn, will you build this with me? Yes, immediately, because we had had such a good time working on Para Graciela, and Cheryl just really gets me. And we have so much fun together. And at the same time, I have this relationship. I have my two artistic homes, Collaboraction and Teatro Vista. And I brought the show to Teatro Vista and said, I think I have something here. And we applied for the Joyce Award. Big shout out to the Joyce Foundation for supporting artists from all over the Midwest region. And they got on board with the first part of funding. Then the Goodman Theater got on board. I actually developed the show at the Goodman Theater as part of the playwrights unit. This project has just been one of the biggest gifts of my life, and it makes people so happy. And Chicagoans of all kinds, whether one of my big hopes with the show was that it would be a show that someone my age could come to, a show that a whole family could enjoy. And that's really what ended up happening, right? Like someone my age would come and they'd be like, oh my gosh, I have to bring my parents to the show. I have to bring my kids to the show. During all the runs that we've had in Chicago, we've had people come see the show 5 or 6 times, and we are waiting for you on Friday, August 23rd. I think that's all I'll say for now, and I'll let Cheryl jump in, because that was a lot.
Well, let me tee up here that, one of the great things about theater is that you get to work with other people, and you get to you form a family. And, you and Cheryl Lynn have created such a wonderful partnership. And I wonder if Cheryl could maybe just introduce how you two met and what that has that relationship, how it's grown, and where you are today as collaborators as you mount this landmark production at Millennium Park.
Well, Sandra remembers how we met. It was so far back.
So long ago.
I was one of the directors of a program called Stories on Stage, where short stories are read by actors in front of a live audience and then later broadcast. And I can't even remember the story.
I don't remember the story either. Yeah.
It was produced by Steve Scott.
Well,
right?
No, Steve was one of the directors. It was Kathy Tellingater.
That's right. It was Kathy with BEZ.
Because she was with BEZ, so the stories would be aired depending on the length. It might not be the same night all the stories were read, but she'd put together an evening for the radio. And you could hear the stories if you hadn't gone to hear them live. And it was wonderful. And I had the good fortune of working with Sandra, and she brings such light to texts that it was a no-brainer. I don't remember the story, but I do remember when she brought the text for Para Graciela, and it was a story of memory, but a story of family and feelings, and it had a kind of ethereal kind of sense of longing and belonging. And when she told me it was about her grandmother, then it was beautiful, because I think we all have really profound relationships with our grandparents, and having lost mine and knowing what that link is once it's gone, how precious it is once it's gone, to go with her into that story and all the beautiful moments of it. And the grandfather who made this perfume for his wife. And it was just lyrical. And the projections enhanced the story. And it was only Sandra telling it. I just felt that she was making magic. And she had written the text, of course, but she jumped into it and made it manifest. And then with the projections, it was magical. So when she said, I think I have this story about love, Ana Madrid, it was a sheaf of text.
Yeah.
It was huge. And I said, well, this sounds great. I had a good time with the Isolo series. So let's see. And it was speeches and background, and we just had a great time combing through and finding out what the heart of all the stories were. And the fact that they were based on interviews made them really golden. And it was just a matter of finding the thread that went through them. And I have to say that it was first mounted in 2017, but I think with every production, with every iteration, I've learned more about the story. One, because each venue required us to rethink the story and reshape it for the venue's needs. And that's certainly true of the Pritzker Pavilion. But it made me also understand the story from another angle. So I've had 7 shots, I guess, to figure out what is happening. And along the way also we've worked with wonderful and talented creatives who have enhanced the story. But it's just wonderful working. It's fulfilling working with an artist of Sandra's caliber. And I call her our scribe. Because she is. And she's not precious about text. That's what's so beautiful. She'll just say, let's cut that. Sometimes, and sometimes I'm not even thinking about cutting it, but she sees the possibility of advancing the story. And that's delightful, because some writers are not that flexible. I mean, they're married to the way they thought it and put it on the page. But she's nimble, and she can see, because she's also an actress. So she knows text from that vantage point too, and I am too. So we can have kind of a shorthand. And also am always interested in hearing what she envisioned, because that's, for me, the text is the Holy Grail. It's the Bible. It's the Rosetta Stone. So if I'm not clear on something, I can always ask Sandra, but I know that all the answers are in the text. And she'll tweak, she'll reconfigure, she'll rethink, and that keeps it fresh. That keeps it fresh for me, and I know it keeps it fresh for the other creatives because, as I said, each venue requires something different. So I'm looking forward to what's going to happen on that stage in the park.
Before we get to that, I do want to just highlight that Teatro Vista and Collaboraction co-produced Yo Solo. What year was that?
2012.
No.
Yeah.
12 years ago. And
Yikes.
and that was the first time you two worked together as in a production.
It is as playwright director.
And director,
Yeah.
And you were excavating the story of your grandparents. Mm-hmm. And Liviu Passari was the video designer and had a big hand in it.
Huge.
And Pada Graciela was the second show in the triptych. The third show became La Habana Madrid. Mm-hmm. And now you're excavating the story of not just your parents and the nightclub, but a whole community and culture that surrounded it. And from an 80-seat theater at Steppenwolf's 1,700 space to a 12,000 seat or capacity venue.
I'm ready. Let's go. Let's do it. We're going to have a great time, everyone.
At Pritzker Pavilion. What do you hope that the audience will walk away with in this new landmark production?
I hope that the audience that night, on Friday night, comes away as full as every audience we've ever performed in front of. Mm-hmm. If they do that, we've done our work, because it's, as Sandra always says, it's a love letter to the city, because you don't have to be Latina to enjoy the stories and to understand the passion behind the writing and the understanding, because we do grow together during the evening of that performance. And people get to see parts of the city and parts of the city livers that they may never have known. I lived in the area that one of the stories takes place. I lived on the north side. When Carlos is talking about living on the north side, I walked those streets. I know the streets he's talking about. And it was a memory that I savored, that I enjoyed. And I think anyone in the city can understand some of the things, the issues that are raised. And also, people leave full of joy and happiness. And I believe at this point at this point in time, people are aching to feel good about a lot of things. And this is just a breath of fresh air, a cup of cool water, and it's full of music, which is a universal language. You don't have to know Spanish to enjoy the songs or understand what's in a bolero. You don't have to. You don't have to.
Feel it.
And you feel it. And that's the thing. You feel things that you don't have to have a knowledge of Spanish to feel.
I say yes to all of that. And I'll also add that what I hope is again, the hope that I have for every audience is that it leaves you, especially doing the show in Chicago, and as Chicagoans that are coming to see the show, that it leaves you more curious about the streets that you walk down every day. Our city, do we need another play about New York? No. We need more plays about Chicago. And I want Chicagoans, our city is fascinating. There are stories on every block, the way the city has changed over the decades, over centuries. And I want you to be more curious about your city and the stories that it holds, and also more curious about your family. I've had so many people who come to see the show who afterwards tell me, you know what? I realized I don't know anything about my grandparents. So I called my grandfather up and we had this long conversation. Like, that makes me cry. That is so beautiful to me. There have been shows that have been created by artists that have come to see La Habana Madrid, and they've been like, whoa, I can do that. And I'm saying, yes, you can do that. And we need you. We need you to create. So yes, and the joy and connection. What you said, Cheryl, about longing and belonging in my work, I'm like, wow, that I do write about longing and belonging. Belonging is so important to me, and how we all belong to each other. I just want us all to also just have a great time in Millennium Park on Lake Michigan. Lake Michigan is another character. And also, as Cheryl mentioned, the music. So you're going to get to know characters inspired by people who went to the club. You're going to get to know about Chicago history in the 1960s, and also music history, Latine music history. We have an incredible band, Carpaccio y su Super Combo. They've been around in Chicago. Carpaccio has been here since the 70s, making music, making people happy, and his band is the band in the show. What a gift. And so they're going to take you through how music changed throughout the 60s, and you'll get the, pure sounds of Cuba, like the mambo. You're going to get the love songs like the bolero. You're going to get salsa. You're going to get cha-cha-cha. We're going to have a great time. Ultimately, that's it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And what I love also is each one of the characters talks about how music helped them, soothed them, healed them, help them express their joy. And that's what I love. I mean, when people start to sing along with the songs,
oh, it's the best.
People start to cry.
Yeah.
People are moved, and sometimes breathless and unable to articulate what they went through, but they know they went through something during that show. It activates a kind of heart heat that is just beautiful to see. And I like to just watch the audience sometimes, because I'm out there, just to see them taken away from the stress and tension that they might have been in before they came to the show, and leave refreshed. It doesn't mean struggle goes away, but it certainly helps and it heals. So music is, as I said, an international language that has no barriers, and that's what we see in the play. So. And also there's dancing. There's dancing, the actors dance, and also the audience dances. The audience is invited to share. So.
I have to share now, because you just made me think of this, about music being such a powerful form of expression. At the very first production of La Habana Madrid, which was Teatro Vista at Steppenwolf, we got an email from a woman saying, hey, my mother and father met at La Habana Madrid on New Year's Eve. They got married. My father passed away. My mother is still alive. She has Parkinson's and she lives in Florida. You guys are sold out. I would really love to bring her. Is there any way we can get tickets? And we're like, of course, we will figure it out. So this woman, because of the Parkinson's, she was nonverbal. She really wasn't speaking a lot anymore. And I remember, because I'm on stage, I also have the huge gift of being able to see the audience as well, it just fills my heart up so much. And so this woman was sitting with her daughter in the front row. And again, this woman doesn't speak. And I started singing Sabor a Mi, and she started singing along. And it was like everything I could do to not just completely break down. That music was able to spark this memory in her, and to enable her to do something that she wasn't able to do in her everyday life. She was able to sing. It just, that is the power of the show. It's really something special.
Remember at Goodman, The guy in the wheelchair.
The guy in the wheelchair.
He came out on the dance floor and danced with somebody in his wheelchair. That's what this show does.
Yeah, and I'm remembering now the first preview we had at the Goodman. One of the things that I really strive to create multicultural, multi-generational spaces, and I just remember, when we did it at the Goodman took out all the seating on the main floor and replaced it with tables. And I just remember the power of that first preview when there's this song that happens at the end of the show where everyone just kind of loses their minds and everyone in the audience starts dancing. And that floor, people came down from the mezzanines. That floor had black, it had brown, it had white, it had young, it had old, it had everything. And I'm like, yes, this is it. This is it.
Everybody goes. So, one of the really amazing things of the show is it goes from these super simple, intimate monologues or two-person scenes that are just so well staged and directed and acted and simple. Barely any props, barely any scenes. Scenic elements, in the scene,
right?
And you really feel like you're like this person's talking to you,
and
then it explodes into this spectacle with video and disco balls and dancing and the band, and then it comes back down into these little moments that are as precious and big and special as the big moments. Would you share a little bit about, these are 6 real stories that are told about Chicagoans that frequented the club. Can you share a little bit about one or two or some of those stories?
I'll just say the stories are inspired by real Chicagoans. As a writer, the stories are, as I say, a mixture of fact and fiction and myth.
As all stories are.
Yes.
At least the ones I tell.
But we know, I know personally 2 of the people whose stories are told, 3 actually, 4. Because
Maria, Carpaccio, Carlos,
Mirna. And so I get a glimpse of what Maria Bicelli, who's the first story we hear, what she was like, or what she might. I can see the spirit in the woman that I know in that little girl who tells the first story of being brought from Cuba to the United States with her 2 brothers. And it is a child beginning the story for us, beginning the evening for us. And we follow all the twists and turns of the other 5 stories' lives, and then end with a celebration, yes, but also a moment where La Habana helps us understand the city that we're blessed to be in. And it's our home, which is, a home is always a kind of sanctuary. That's where we go to be safe and to be with the people that we love. And I think in a way, this time where fellow citizens are not deemed part of our family is really a kind of dangerous time. And all of any effort to bring us together, or at least to help us see each other in another light, is essential to our own personal healing and growth. And that's what this story does. And I don't want to just kind of sound sappy, but I've learned over the 7 years I've been working with Sandra and other creatives to tell these stories, what it does. I've seen what it does. I have seen what it does. And I felt it too, smiling with the audience and also being moved sometimes to tears because sometimes something strikes me. And these days, with our immigrant brothers and sisters being demonized, we get a chance to see what immigrants do when the chance they take, the stakes are so high to make it, to get somewhere else, that it humanizes the people who come here. And we're fortunate to be here. We know how fortunate we are to be here. And so it helps me appreciate the risk and the blessing. So, that's all.
And one of those stories is Carpaccios.
I know.
Sandra, do you want to tell a little bit about inspired by Carpaccio story? Our band leader, the bass player, he watches his own story played by a younger actor, a younger version of himself on the stage. Who is Carpaccio to you, and why is his story in the show?
Oh, okay. I just want to backtrack a little bit. Yeah. It was a decision on my part to make this a play that featured storytelling and not like scenes, right? And that was intentional on my part. I think there's something that happens, going back to the question about the intimacy, for these stories, for these people, it was so important to me that they really are just talking to you and being like, we are actually not so different from each other. And in fact, a lot of the stuff that these Chicagoans were living through in the 60s are the issues that we're still going through today. Segregation, displacement, police brutality, so many things that are still in the ether today, and yet these people found a place to belong. They found joy. They found love. We as the Mirna character says, you get knocked up, knocked down.
Hey now, it's not that kind of show.
This is a family show. Yikes.
You get knocked down, and you surround yourself with the people who love you, and you pick yourself up and you keep going. With Carpaccio specifically, Carpaccio is my father's oldest friend. They knew each other from Colombia, and my parents had a basement. They had a red brick 2-flat in Lakeview, and so that became the band rehearsal space for my uncle's band. And my father answered the door one day, and it was Carpaccio who was there to jam with the band, and they were like, wait, I know you. And so Carpaccio's always been a part of my life. And why is he in the show? Because he has to be. He is an absolute character with the most amazing story. And you are going to fall in love with him. I mean, he is someone who leads with optimism and joy. And it's such a great way to end the show. Back to what Cheryl was saying about beginning the show, these characters, just really quickly, we have Maria, who is a young Cuban Pedro Pan. In the 60s, Cuban parents sent over 14,000 unaccompanied minors, all these children who were then scattered across foster homes in the United States. Some of them never saw their families again. I mean, how can we not think about what's happening with new people to Chicago right now? So starting the show off through the eyes of a child is just powerful and a beautiful way, and her story is so inspiring. She's an amazing woman, Maria Bocelli. Then we have the story inspired by my parents. Then we have a story inspired by Carlos Flores. Please look him up on Facebook. He has been chronicling Puerto Rican life in Chicago through his powerful photographs since the 60s. We are so lucky to have him as a historian. Then we have a character inspired by Tony Quintana, who was one of the first Spanish language radio pioneers and Spanish language television pioneers who owned the club for a short while. Then we have Mirna Salazar, who was my first talent agent and just over the years became a huge champion of Latina theater artists. And may she rest in peace. And then we have Carpaccio. We are going to take you on an incredible journey of Chicago history. And again, we're going to have a good time. I really hope to see you all there.
Yeah, you remind me of that time when we were first rehearsing in that little storefront on north on Lincoln Avenue. And Carpaccio was watching
Marvin Yeah.
tell his story. And Carpaccio got lost in the story.
He did.
Because he was watching Marvin recount his experience, and he just got swept up in the story, and he teared up. I watched him. Mm-hmm. He was so moved by that story. I mean, it was his life, but the things he overcame. I just remember him being just transfixed. And he didn't play, or there was some he missed a cue or something, because
he was so into it.
He was so into it. He was down into it, and he just had to come back to play, because he was taken back to that time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And Carpaccio really has become just such a well-regarded, respected, we're watching him become a legend of the Chicago music scene. My good friend Nicholas Tremulous, who's an amazing musician, probably a lot of folks know Nick. He's super talented. He was coming to the Sandra Delgado experience, which was last Friday at Epiphany Center for the Arts, and he said, "Is Carpaccio going to be there?" And I said, "Oh, you know Carpaccio?" He said, "Everybody knows Carpaccio."
That's awesome.
And the funny thing is, I don't know if Cheryl knows this, but Sandra and I fell in love, and start meeting Carpaccio and beginning my relationship with her godfather, and he starts petitioning me to be in plays. He wants to be an actor. Actually, it was him and Carlos. That was the bit in the beginning. When are you going to put me and your father-in-law in some shows?
Oh, my dad. He's talking about my father.
So I put Carpaccio ended up being in Sketchbook a few times.
Yes, he did.
He was in some shows.
Oh, really?
With Collaboration.
Like in 2005, and he's like, "Okay, when's my big role coming? You gave me the little role." And now here he is, on the stage. He traveled with the show to California, and we get to not only hear the beginning of his story, but we get to experience where he's ended up, and that's why I think it's so. And here he is on the poster. He's big time.
Oh yeah, so looking a little younger.
What as
we all were a little younger 7 years ago.
Here on WCPT, as we prepare for the gathering of the Democratic Party here in Chicago, what does it mean? What does that context for Levana Madrid mean to both of you? How do you think that'll impact the audience's perspective compared to other productions? And what is the relevance and connection to what's happening nationally on the political scene and what will be happening in Chicago the days before our production?
I don't know, because we really don't know what the convention is going to do and be, and how it's going to resolve. There's so much hope and energy, and the longing for something to be good. Some kind of good resolution for as many in this country as can have it, not for a few. That's the sense. I was out in California when President Biden handed the baton off to Vice President Harris, and there was just this low-grade euphoria that erupted, and I was there the night that black women coalesced on Zoom and raised all that money and raised all the energy, and I think that's going to come here in a couple weeks, that kind of hopeful surge. And I hope people stay an extra day to catch La Habana Madrid, because the convention will end on Thursday. But we're on Friday, and I hope they stay to get some good stuff to take back to their states and back to their homes. That's what I hope. And my daughter's in Congress, and so I hope those good things happen on her watch as well. She was elected in 2022 and won Karen Bass's seat, who's now mayor of LA. And I went out for the election night, so I saw that up close and personal. And I know that she's been working hard as a member of the House of Representatives, and things have been so turbulent that I think that the show we have will bring something good to people. I just think that it will. They don't have to be Democrats, they don't have to be Republicans or independents or whatever. They just have to be able to be there and open up their ears, and actually their hearts will open up. They don't have to do any work on that front.
I'm excited to see. So here we have the Paris Olympics happening right now. And shout out Simone Biles for just setting a whole nother level of excellence. But in a way, the DNC is the Olympics on a national level of the Democratic Party. And Democrats are supposed to be about helping one another. So I'm just excited for Chicagoans to go from watching on the screen on national television the Democratic Party coming together to coalesce, support the candidate, and put the many, many important priorities on the table for the country to see, and then to have that context as Chicagoans to then put the TV down, walk over to Millennium Park, and kind of see manifested some of the things that we're going to be talking about, especially around the importance and the love and the treasure of our immigrants and our new Chicagoans as well. You know, we're still grappling with how to best take care of our new arrivals. And, you know, I think one of the amazing things that choreographer Johnny Martinez did in the South Coast Rep production was to, correct me if I'm wrong here, but include choreography from all 21 of the Latinx countries. And so in this kind of inclusive vibe, how we will be on stage mirroring like what happens in our country when we are at our best.
Absolutely.
You know, you mentioned the Olympics, and when the U.S. Men's gymnastic team won bronze, at first I didn't know what kind of medal they won, because they were jumping around like they were on fire, and they'd won a medal for the first time in 16 years. And when they held the team got together and held the flag in front of them, and I said to my husband, look, it looks like that looks like us. That looks like America. It's such a great shot. I said, yes, and there should be even more in that picture, because it was just really, it touched me, and I wasn't trying to look for anything, but it just hit me, just that image. And you know, pictures that are worth 1,000 words, and that was that. I still feel that way. It was beautiful. And that's what the Olympics is, right? The family of man.
Yes.
The family of humans coming together in good faith to compete with each other. But then it's great to see in the pool, you know, when somebody swims over to hug somebody that beat them out. I like that. And there's a great commercial where the runner helps another runner up. They both stop in the race because one has fallen. I think when I look at that video, it looks like the guy behind him kind of tripped him up, and they both stop and pick each other up. And that kind of civility and care is so necessary. It's like food. It's a kind of a psychological food, because I know that the dis-ease that has been a kind of constant in the political arena. I know that dis-ease affects everybody, regardless of party. It just does. I can't go home and feel comfortable about that.
Well, and speaking of dis-ease, we are still coming out of the impact of the pandemic. And which also really gets me excited about this sacred gathering we're doing in this, by design, super segregated city that we live in and that we love. But early on, some people, mostly white and rich and male, designed our city so that we were, as they say in La Habana, Madrid, it's a city of neighborhoods, which means you stay in your neighborhood and I'll stay in mine. And the power of art to break down those systemic barriers is so important. I wonder, as we have just a few minutes left, if you each could kind of talk a little bit about the power and the value of art and theater in these times.
Well, I'll say first, since you brought up barriers, one thing that I'm so excited about this production on August 23rd is that it's free. Anyone can come and enjoy the show. That is huge for us. And thank you to DCASE and Millennium Park, Pritzker Pavilion, for having us and making this available to Chicagoans, all Chicagoans. Wow, that's a big question, Anthony. The power of art. So many things. I mean, I guess I'll just say the power of art is to connect people, to make you think about your own life, and hopefully to cultivate some joy as well. That's what art is for me, connection and joy.
Yeah. And learning. I mean, that's the beauty of the coda.
Yes.
Because La Habana, Madrid takes me by the hand and she tells me things I didn't know about the places that I have walked and driven. I remember that Japanese store, Toguri, was on Belmont, and I shopped there because that was one place I could find the little Japanese slippers and just all kinds of stuff, incense. But I didn't know why it was there.
Yeah.
And it was the only Japanese store around there. I think I wondered why. But I found out. And as I said, I used to live on the north side. My daughter was born in a kitchen on the north side. I walked those streets, rode the train, drove up and down the streets, parked on the streets, and didn't know the stories. Yeah. And that's important too. Art does things. I know my mother used to say, you can catch more flies with honey than you can with vinegar. And La Habana Madrid is like honey times 10.
The good stuff.
The good stuff.
Well, time flies when you're having a great time with great people. Thank you so much for joining us on Collaboration Radio.
Subscribe.
And the three of us will all be kicking it with many others, thousands of others, at Millennium Park on August 23rd. There's a great lawn there. You can bring chair and blanket and cooler. There's also some seats. And this is going to be a really once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to soak up these stories and this beautiful combination of music and dance and storytelling and acquire new knowledge and empathy, and hopefully make us all better Chicagoans. So thank you both for joining us. I can't wait to see what happens next. What after we turn this page, what the next chapter for your collaboration and Levana Madrid and the Teatro Vista and Collaboration family. So thank you both for coming here.
From that little theater.
I know.
How many people did it see?
It's like 90.
Look,
Yeah.
to thousands.
We'll see you,
See you.
at August 23rd.
Yes. Come on down.
That's Collaboration Radio. You can catch us Saturdays at 4 p.m. Central here on WCPT, 8:20 a.m. Better yet, I think this is our 56th episode. We got some great podcasts available wherever you get your podcast, Spotify, Apple Music. You can see a lot of these episodes on YouTube. And there's lots of learning from some amazing Chicagoans who are committed to art, activism, and social change. So enjoy your Saturday. Hey, it's my birthday. I'm 51 today on August 3rd. And delighted to spend it with these two incredible Chicagoans.